The whisper of fate before the abyss. What would happen if you discovered that this moment, this very second you're watching this video, is no coincidence? What if I told you there's a silent tremor happening inside you right now, a barely perceptible vibration that announces that everything is about to change? Not in the world outside, but in that invisible structure that sustains who you believe yourself to be. Something is breaking. You feel it, but you can't name it. Prepare to understand the secret language of turning points, that threshold moment when the old life dies and the new has yet to be born. This isn't about motivational self-help or empty promises of instant transformation. This is something much deeper, much more radical. It's about recognizing that you've already been transformed, just waiting for the courage to admit it. Friedrich Nietzsche dedicated his life to deciphering this mysterious phenomenon. He understood that great turning points arrive not with fanfare, but with a subterranean unease we refuse to name. And what he discovered contradicts everything you've been taught about change, about destiny, about who you truly are. This knowledge has been fragmented, hidden between the lines of complex philosophical works, lost in translation between eras. But today, in this video, you'll gain access to the first key. The key that reveals why you feel this growing restlessness, why nothing seems to fit anymore, why you wake up with that feeling that something needs to change, but you don't know exactly what. If you're ready to face the raw truth about the threshold you're crossing, take a deep breath. Because once you see it, you can't look away. Welcome to a glimpse of the real, where silence speaks and the soul finds itself. This is the video you needed to watch before the turning point in your life. The illusion of control and the emptiness of ready-made answers. You've tried everything, haven't you? You've meditated, practiced positive thinking, read self-help books, gone to therapy, repeated affirmations in front of the mirror. And for a few days, maybe even weeks, you felt an improvement, a temporary lightness, a fleeting hope. But then, inevitably, you're back to the same place. That existential discomfort returns, stronger, more insistent, more impossible to ignore. The problem isn't you. The problem is that these solutions treat superficial symptoms while the real issue remains untouched, buried deep within your being. They try to make you feel better inside the prison, when what you really need is to acknowledge that you're trapped and have the courage to leave. Relationships end without any meaningful explanation. Jobs dissolve mysteriously. Projects you've invested years in crumble like sandcastles. And everyone tells you it's just a bad phase, that you need to be resilient, that you must keep the faith. But no one tells you the brutal truth. These collapses aren't accidents. They're summonses. Life is dismantling structures that no longer support who you're becoming. And you resist fiercely because accepting this means accepting the death of who you once were. It means looking in the mirror and admitting that the person you built with so much effort, the identity you defended for years, is already dead, and you're just carrying the corpse, pretending you're still alive. Albert Camus was right when he said that we recognize the absurdity of our existence just before we free ourselves from it. That moment when you realize that your old answers no longer suffice, that the stories you told yourself no longer convince even you. This is the threshold moment. And a crucial piece is missing for you to understand what's really happening. The forgotten guardians of human metamorphosis. Friedrich Nietzsche was not just a philosopher. He was an archaeologist of the human soul, a decoder of the secret processes that govern our deepest transformations. And what he discovered about turning points was systematically ignored because it was too radical, too honest, too frightening for the morality of his time. Nietzsche understood that there is a force within every human being that he called the will to power. It is not the will to power over others, but the will to constantly surpass oneself. And when this force is repressed for too long, When we spend years denying our vital impulse for growth, it begins to create ruptures, not as punishment, but as liberation. Along with Nietzsche, other masters of human understanding mapped this sacred territory of the turning point. Carl Jung spoke of the process of individuation, that inevitable journey toward the wholeness of being. Jean-Paul Sartre warned us about bad faith, the sophisticated lie we tell ourselves to avoid the terrifying freedom of our choices. Viktor Frankl, a concentration camp survivor, showed that even in the most absolute hell, there is the possibility of creating meaning. This knowledge doesn't come from optimistic self-help books. It comes from men and women who have stared into the abyss of human existence and had the courage not to look away. And what they discovered is that turning points follow a specific anatomy, a recognizable process that, once understood, frees you from the paralyzing fear of transformation. If you feel you're finally ready to understand the truth about the moment you're going through, subscribe to this channel and activate the bell, because what comes next will completely change the way you see your own life. The woman who woke up living someone else's life. Let me tell you about Marcella. She's not a historical figure or a public figure. She's an ordinary woman, like you, who reached 42 and woke up one day feeling like she was living someone else's life. Marcella had everything society says she should have: a stable 15-year marriage, 2 children, a respectable career as a corporate lawyer, a beautiful house, annual vacations. But there was something wrong, deeply wrong, that she couldn't name. Every morning when she woke up, she felt an inexplicable weight on her chest, an existential nausea that no amount of coffee could dispel. She tried what everyone tries: conventional therapy that analyzed her childhood for trauma, guided meditation that promised inner peace, physical exercise that supposedly released endorphins. And it worked for a few days. But then the nausea returned, stronger, more insistent, like a voice that refused to be silenced. Until one day, something snapped. Her husband discovered she had turned down a crucial promotion at work without even consulting her family. When he asked why, Marcella had no rational answer. He simply said, "Because I can't pretend to care about this career anymore." The fight that followed was devastating, but it was also liberating, because in that moment of rupture, Marcella finally admitted a truth she'd been whispering for years. She'd built an entire life based on other people's expectations. And now, at 42, she was on the threshold of a brutal choice: continue pretending and slowly dying inside, or have the courage to completely reinvent herself, even without knowing who she would become. Marcella was exactly where you are now, at the turning point. And what she discovered upon crossing that threshold was that there is a method, a path, an ancient wisdom that guides this transformation. It's not easy, it's not quick, but it's real, and it's liberating. The 7 secret moves of total reinvention. The first necessary step is brutal in its honesty. You need to look at yourself without the masks, without the comforting stories, without the narrative you've constructed to justify your choices. Nietzsche called this knowing yourself beyond good and evil. It's not about moral judgment, but about raw recognition of who you truly are, including the parts you're ashamed of, the shadows you hide, the desires you deny. Jung would say it's an encounter with the shadow, that rejected part of ourselves that we project onto others. Marcella had to admit that she had always chosen security over authenticity, approval over freedom. And this admission hurt more than any external criticism could. The second principle is even more challenging. You need to develop radical attention to the present moment, not as a relaxation technique, but as a way to interrupt the automatism that governs your life. Most of your actions are not conscious choices. They are inherited patterns, social scripts that you execute without question. When Marcella started paying attention, she realized she spent the entire day on autopilot. She'd wake up, check her phone, complain about the traffic, go to the office, do her tasks, come home, watch TV, sleep. And the next day, she'd repeat it all over again. There was no presence. There was no real life, just the mechanical repetition of empty gestures. The third movement requires you to confront your emotions without trying to fix or eliminate them. Sartre taught us that emotions are not defects to be corrected, but information about how we relate to the world. Marcella felt angry, but instead of repressing or medicating it, she began to ask, what is this anger protecting me from? What is it trying to tell me? And the response was devastating. Anger was shielding her from the deep sadness of recognizing that she had wasted years living a life she hadn't truly chosen. But once she allowed the sadness to emerge, once she cried the tears she'd been suppressing for decades, something changed. The sadness didn't destroy her. It freed her. The fourth principle is about ritualizing change. It's not enough to have insights. It's necessary to create concrete, repeated practices that anchor the new way of being. Viktor Frankl observed that finding meaning is not a one-time event, but a daily process through small, meaningful choices. Marcella started with something simple. Every morning before checking her phone, she would sit quietly for 5 minutes and ask her body, "What do you need today?" Not her mind, but her body. And she listened. Sometimes it was rest. Sometimes it was movement. Sometimes it was just permission to feel. The fifth movement is about recognizing that you don't exist in isolation. We are relational beings shaped by the connections we make. And when you change, your relationships must change too, or they will die. This is terrifying because it means some of the people you love may not be able to keep up with your transformation. Marcella had to accept that her marriage, as it was, would not survive her move. Not because her husband was a bad person, but because the relationship had been built on a version of her that no longer existed. They would need to renegotiate everything, rebuild from scratch, or separate. Both options were frightening. The sixth principle is about alignment with something greater than yourself. Not necessarily God or religion, but with the awareness that you are part of a whole, that your actions have repercussions, that there is a greater order that transcends your individual ego. Nietzsche spoke of a more fatty love of destiny, the ability to say yes to all of life, including its pains. Marcella began to realize that everything that had happened, including the years of silent suffering, had been necessary, not in the sense of a perfect divine plan, but in the sense that it had brought her there, to that moment of radical possibility. And she wouldn't choose differently because all of it constituted her. The seventh and final movement is the most radical of all. It's about ego death, the recognition that the fixed identity you defend tooth and nail is an illusion. You are not a static thing, but a process in constant transformation. And when you stop clinging to who you were, you can finally become who you are. Marcella realized there was no hidden, true self waiting to be discovered. There was only the possibility of creating herself, day after day, choice after choice. And this realization, instead of generating anxiety, generated a dizzying freedom. She didn't need to find herself. She needed to create herself. If you recognize your own journey in Marcella's story, if these principles resonate with something deep within you, then you're ready for the next step. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this transformation doesn't happen alone. It needs constant reminders, voices that bring you back when you forget, a community that understands. The body never lies, feeling the truth before words. Now, do something with me. Stop for a moment and feel your body. Don't think about it. Feel it. Notice the sensation of the chair or sofa you're sitting on. The weight of your body against the surface. the temperature of the air on your skin, the rhythm of your breathing. Now, ask your body, where am I holding tension? And wait, don't force an intellectual answer. Just notice. Maybe it's in your shoulders, maybe your jaw, maybe your stomach. Wherever it is, place your attention there. This tension isn't accidental. It's the physical manifestation of your resistance to transformation. Your body knows you need to change. It's been screaming this for months, maybe years. And you've been ignoring it, rationalizing it, postponing it. Now, imagine yourself 5 years from now living exactly the same life you live today. Same routine, same conversations, same choices. How does your body react to this image? Do you feel expansion or contraction? Relief or tightness in your chest? If you felt a contraction, a tightness, a weight, a resistance, your body has just given you the most honest answer you'll ever receive. It's telling you that this life, as it is no longer sustainable. It's no longer yours. It needs to change. And here's the truth. No one tells you. You already know what you need to do. Maybe not the practical details, but the general direction. There's something you've been putting off, something your rational mind justifies as impossible or unwise, but your body recognizes as necessary. Marcella knew, deep down, that she needed to leave that office. She'd known for years, but her mind was constructing sophisticated arguments, financial security, retirement, expectations. And her body was just slowly getting sicker, screaming through symptoms she medicated, so she could keep pretending. Are you feeling it now? That subtle tingling, that feeling of something moving inside you? It's not anxiety, it's recognition. It's your soul saying, yes, this is it. This is the path. This is the moment. When all the pieces finally fit together. Look back now and see how everything connects. The unexpected ruptures weren't accidents, they were summons. The sacred boredom wasn't depression, it was lucidity. The synchronicities weren't coincidences, they were signs that you were ready. The silent certainty wasn't impulsiveness, it was bodily wisdom. And amor fati is not resignation, but the radical courage to say yes to everything that brought you here, including the pain, the mistakes, the losses. Because without them, you wouldn't be in this moment of transformative possibility. Nietzsche taught us that turning points are not interruptions in life, but life at its most honest. They are moments when the mask falls and you see with brutal clarity who you really are, not who you pretended to be to satisfy other people's expectations. Jung showed us that individuation, this journey toward wholeness, is not optional. You can resist it, you can postpone it, but it will happen anyway. The only real choice is whether you will go through this process consciously or unconsciously as a protagonist or a victim. Sartre reminded us that freedom is terrifying because it comes with absolute responsibility. You can no longer blame circumstances, parents, or society. Once you see the truth, once you recognize that you are on the threshold, you become responsible for whether or not you cross it. And Frankl, who survived hell on earth, taught us the ultimate lesson. Meaning isn't out there waiting to be found. It must be created, built, chosen, day after day, through our actions and decisions. Marcella finally understood. She hadn't found herself. She created herself. She left the office, not knowing exactly what would come next. She renegotiated her marriage from the ground up, establishing new terms based on who she truly was. And some days were terrifying, filled with doubt and fear. But for the first time in decades, she was truly alive. The truth that was hidden in plain sight. And now we come to the secret that was hidden in plain sight all along. The philosophical twist that changes everything if you let it sink in. You're not preparing to change. You've already changed. The person who started watching this video isn't the same person who's here now. Something's broken, something's cracked, and there's no going back. The turning point isn't a future event you need to reach. It's this moment, now, this expanded awareness, this truth that can no longer be unseen. You're on the threshold. You always have been. The only question is whether you'll have the courage to admit it. Nietzsche would say that the ultimate secret is to recognize that power has always been within you. It didn't need to be found or conquered. It just needed to be recognized, claimed, and lived. Fate isn't an external force pushing you. It's the inevitable unfolding of who you truly are when you stop resisting. And resisting the turning point preserves nothing. It only prolongs the agony of a death that has already occurred at the soul level. So here's the final, non-negotiable, urgent invitation. Stop waiting for the right moment. Stop waiting for enough courage. Stop looking for more signs. You already have everything you need. Life is calling you to a new way of being. And the only real sin is to ignore that call. If this video touched something deep within you, if you recognized your own journey in these words, leave just 3 words in the comments. I'm on the threshold. Because recognizing where we are is the first act of courage on the journey to becoming who we truly are. And if you want to continue this journey of deep self-discovery, exploring these truths that most are afraid to face, subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications. Because this transformation doesn't happen once. It needs to be chosen every day. Life is calling. Destiny has a message for you. And the only question that remains is, will you have the courage to answer?